why my mower starts then dies. Hello and thank you for stopping by. Today I'm going to show you the answer to why this mower starts then dies. It was brought to me with the problem of just that. It'll start up and then it'll die out. I'm going to show you the steps I take to find out what the problem is and to remedy it. So let's get started. All in all, this mower doesn't look too beat up. First thing I'm going to do is check the oil, make sure there's oil in there. It's a little on the high side, not too dirty. The gas tank is empty. Now I don't know if this was put away and then taken out, or if it just stopped running and they left it, couldn't do anything with it, brought it someplace else. Don't know what the full story is on it. And when you get these in, you never know the full story. Carburetor over here, looks like there might have been some kind of a leak. I'm not sure where it's from. See that on the bowl? Catching it? Alright, let's look underneath. Looks like it wasn't cleaned in a while, but if it stopped running, but if it was giving them a hard time running, they probably just left it as is. Might have got a price someplace else and decided just to let it go. Looks like it was cut in wet grass. See the way that's caked on? That's usually wet grass. That'll do that. Although, if you don't clean these out, they will cake up with grass. So what I'm going to do now is to put fresh gas into this. Crank it a few times. See if I get the condition that was stated to me. Then I'll put this up on the table, start taking it apart. More than likely this carburetor is gummed up, or there might even be some water in the bowl. So let me get some gas in here and see what it does. Prime it a few times. Let's see. I'm not sure if this primer is getting any gas into the carburetor, so we'll manually prime it. This filter's pretty dirty. Alright, that's the start and die situation that was explained. Let me get this up so we can start taking it apart. To get started, I'm going to remove this cowling, and it has 4 of these bolts in there. Requires a 1/4 inch socket to get them out. These are all loose, and you have to remove the dipstick to get this off. That should be it. Okay. You don't want to do what I just did and dump those screws. All right. Now we have to get this starter off. Looks like these might require 8mm. Let's see. What's this? 9mm. Yep. Or this is 5/16 also work. So there's 1, 2. Looks like the bolt holding the dipstick has to come out. Then this gas tank will just lift right off. There should be 2 bolts back here also. these screws do require an 8mm. Pry this up, out of the way. Back here we have a larger bolt that looks like a 10mm maybe. Let's see. Yep, 10mm. Now you're saying, this is a carburetor issue, why are we taking this cowling off? A couple of reasons. One, I never worked on this mower before. We want to see what the coils look like in there, what this wire looks like, if it's chewed at all. Just because we had spark before doesn't mean that everything's okay underneath. And while we have this off, we can service the starter, cleaning it up, and getting a couple drops of oil in here. Now look at this, see this? See the way this is caked up? This engine gets cooled by air. When this flywheel turns, we have these fins. It blows air down through these fins and cools this engine off. If these fins are clogged, it minimizes the air that can flow over them. And this engine gets cooled by air. The oil lubricates and helps keep it cool, but there isn't a water jacket on this like you have in a car. So if this is clogged, you can have a serious problem. Blown head gasket, or maybe worse. Alright, it doesn't look like a mouse nest, it just looks like it was clogged up. Maybe a mouse nest too. Alright, so before I put this back on, this will all be cleaned up. This will get a little bit of oil in it. This will be all cleaned up. But here's my concern, this carburetor. Now, if you're doing this for the first time, and even if you've done it before, take a picture on how the spring's connected. You have the spring connected here, see where it's looping down? Goes here, goes under this connecting rod. Now this rod is connected to the second hole. There's two holes. It's connected on the second hole, on the top side, not the bottom side. Oh, okay, look at this. We need a primer bulb too. This is why it wasn't priming before also. See that crack? There's a crack in the bulb right there. I don't know if I have this type of bulb in stock. I might have to order. So now I'm going to disconnect this hose from the gas tank. But first I'm going to pour this gas out. Then I'm going to pull this carburetor off. Oh, we got gas leaking somewhere. Where's that leaking from? From the bowl. Okay. I'm looking to see how we should get this carburetor off. We have a bolt over here and a bolt back here. What I'm going to do to get this off, and I'll be doing this off camera, I'm going to take these two bolts out of the muffler. I'm going to pull the muffler off. Then I'm going to disconnect this manifold from the block itself. And then I'm going to pull this out as a full unit, the carburetor and this manifold, because I think that'll make it a lot easier to get to this screw back here. It has a nut on this side I could probably get to, but unless these bolts are frozen in there and they snap on me, which that could happen on a muffler, especially on an older machine where it's been heated for quite some time, this will be the easier route to go. So once I have this carburetor off, I'll show you what it looks like on the inside. I have the carburetor off. This is what we're looking at. Before I open this up, I'm going to clean it off. And the way I usually clean it, I'll use some gas. This is usually gas out of an old mowers. I save it just for this purpose. Toothbrush. I'll clean the whole outside off. And the purpose with that is not just to make it look good, but once you clean it and put it back together, you don't want this debris to go back into the carburetor. So I'm going to clean this off and open it up. And what I did find, this was leaking here. This nut on the bottom was on finger tight. So it looks like somebody was in here already. They were headed in the right direction as far as this thing stopping and going. I cleaned the outside of this carburetor up. And again, this was just using old gas and a toothbrush. And now to open it up and work on the inside. Now for this, you're going to need some thin wires. You're going to need some carburetor cleaner. The brand is not specific. So let's get started. When you're working on these carburetors, you want to work on clean surface and something that'll catch parts that may fall out as you're working on them. If you're going to use carburetor cleaner, you want to pull the bowl gasket off because it will deform it. This one looks like it has to be changed. I believe I have these in stock. Take this hinge pin out. Okay. This needle looks like it might be a new needle. I don't believe this is original. Somebody was definitely in here working before. You can see this emulsion tube that's down in there. On the Briggs carburetors, they screw out. On the Tecumsehs, they get pushed out from the top. Now to get to this, I'm going to take this front plate off. Well, you can use a Phillips screwdriver, or I think an 8mm socket will work on this also. As you're taking this off, make notes on how it goes back. See, the high part goes to the bottom. Trying to keep this in focus here. You have this O-ring here. Remember to put this back in when you reassemble this. And you can see down in here where that emulsion tube sticks up. Pull this off. And this just pulls right out. And you get a bit of that emulsion tube now. Right down in there. That red nipple sticking up, that's the top part of that tube. In this carburetor, that's plastic. You want to be careful not to break it. And there's usually an O-ring on it. Oh, this came right out. They usually don't come out that easy. Like I said, somebody was working on this. Now, if you're having a difficult time getting that out, if you get a small Allen wrench, put it in, you can push it down. I believe this will come out with a little wire that I have here. It looks very loose. Okay, I'm going to go get an Allen wrench so I can push that down. Be right back. All right. So with the Allen wrench, just get it in there and push down on that tube. There we go. And it comes right out. Now, this tube, you want to make sure these O-rings aren't broken up or disintegrated. And you can see a hole down over here. This is clear. On this tube, this is the only passage, and this looks like it's clear. But I'm going to spray it out anyway. I can see all the way through. It's clear all the way. So this wasn't the problem. I'm going to clean this out. I'm going to spray carburetor cleaner in all the passages that I find. Don't forget in here. Don't forget to spray in here. Here's something that's often overlooked. Right in here. This has to come out. And there's another jet in here that has to be cleaned out. I pried out the cap, and here's the jet. This jet is turned all the way in tight, so there isn't any adjustment on it. You clean it out and put it back in. And again, this is something that often gets overlooked on a clean out. Let's see. Nope. This looks pretty clean also. I can see right through it. Let's see if the camera's picking that up. There we go. Maybe a little clogged over here. Well, this is getting a little discouraging because I haven't found anything that I see blocked. Now, to do this 100%, these Welch plugs should be popped out, and you could clean out the passages that these Welch plugs block, but I don't have a kit. So if I pull these out, I don't have replacements for it. Once you take them out, they're destroyed. You have to put new ones in. What I'm going to do next is to take this manifold off. And the reason for that, there's usually 3 tiny holes that feed gas to the engine when it's idling. Now you want to remember how this is attached. We have this tab to hold the spring, and if we're looking on this when it's mounted onto the engine, that tab is on the engine side of the carburetor, and see it has a bend. The bend is towards the intake side. So I'm going to take this apart and we'll start cleaning it out. Just a couple of things I want to point out. On this main jet, we have this opening on the bottom. It's obvious, you can see that one, but there's also an opening right here on top above the threads. I have this tie stuck into it so you can see where it's at, right on top. Now when this is slightly dirty or might be covered with dry gas, that opening's hard to see, but it's important that you open that up. Another item, when reinstalling this needle, obviously the float would be on top. You want this open part of the clip to face towards the air intake. Why exactly it has to go that way, I'm not sure, but according to the specs, that's how it should go. Now, as I was putting this together, I just kept looking at this needle and it just didn't look right. There isn't any rubber seat in here. Some carburetors do not have a rubber seat, and it's just the needle go down into the metal seat that's there. But I was pretty sure that these Tecumsehs had a rubber seat in there. And also, I have quite a few of them have some kind of rubbery tip. So out of curiosity, I put that needle in, I blew on the end of this hose, and air was leaking out where the needle is. I went online and come to find out that this carburetor does require a seat. So I have to get a seat, I have to get a primer bulb, and the new bulb gasket, which I already have, but those are the parts that are needed to put this carburetor back together properly. Now I checked online, and if you bought a kit with a bulb ring, a needle and a seat, and the Welch plugs, and O-rings that would go onto this emulsion tube, it comes out to $16.06. And a primer bulb, if I bought it locally at Advance Auto, $9.29. If I went online, this primer bulb could be replaced for $3.62. So we're talking almost $20 for the parts that are needed here. Now, I kept checking to look for better prices, and I found a replacement carburetor for $11.75. $11.75. I don't know how accurate or how well it's going to work, but I'm buying the carburetor and I'm going to install a new carburetor just to see how it works out. Maybe a mistake, I don't know. So I'm going to order that carburetor. It should be here in 2 days. Once it gets here, I'll hook it up to that mower and we'll see how it works. Until then, we'll have to sit tight. Well, this carburetor came in quick. It's the very next day. Now the bag is torn over here. Let's just hope it's just a torn bag and nothing wrong with contents. Alright, everything in here looks okay. And this carburetor, I don't know if you can read those numbers, has a number of 640271262. Let's see how it compares to what we have. And they tape these things closed like they're gonna try and get out. Don't want to mangle the box just in case it's got to go back. Let's see what we have. Okay, from the get-go, it looks the same. Let's see. We have this gasket, which broke on the other one. I was pulling it apart. It stuck to one side and ripped. Warning. Serious injury and property damage could result in... Okay. Okay. This wasn't worth much. Let's get rid of these papers. Now let's compare and see what they look like. We're looking at them side by side. Same Welch plug on the outside. Same type of primer bulb. This is just slightly off to one side a little. This piece is in there. The piece that was in the older one, I have it in the box when I was taking it apart. This manifold and this bracket for the air filter will come off this carburetor and go on this one. Everything else looks the same. I'll have to use the nuts and bolts off the old carburetor. Alright, we're going to give this a try. See, the name of this is Kippa, K-I-P-A. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. And this is an original Tecumseh. I'm holding on to this carburetor. I prefer working on the older ones and just rebuilding them. But in this case, what it was going to cost me for this primer bulb, this gasket, and the seat on the inside was just about $3 less than this whole carburetor. So yeah, let me give it a shot. I want to open this up just to see something. It looks like the emulsion tube on this one, can you see it in there, is metal. The Tecumseh is plastic. Let's see, there should be a ½ inch. And this one has that little passage on the top, just like the Tecumseh does. Alright, inside, other than the material, it looks identical. Oh, and on the Tecumseh, I needed this bowl gasket also. I did have one in stock, but there was a cost to that. So, let me get this together. And we can see over here, if the camera picks it up, the open end of that spring is facing towards the air inlet, right down in there. And when you put these bowls on, some of the newer carburetors just have a round bowl. It doesn't matter how you put it on. But on this one here, you see this step? The deep part of the bowl has to be where this float comes down. All right, let's get this on. I'm going to remove the manifold and the bracket for the air cleaner. I'm going to mount it onto the new carburetor. I'm going to mount the new carburetor onto the mower, and we'll see how well it performs. All right, it's time to check out this new carburetor. Let's prime it up and see if it's going to start. Okay, let's try another startup, make sure it's going to start again. I ran this mower back and forth. This is the grass that I cut. Just to give you an idea, I wanted to make sure it wasn't going to bog down. I didn't know what that carburetor was going to be like. You know, if this camera's picking up the difference in the height of the grass. That's what it's like over here. And here's where the cut is. So it looks like in this case, the $12 carburetor was worth the price. $16 for parts or $12 for the carb. How long is it going to last? I don't know. But if you're having trouble cleaning out your carb and getting it to run, give that $12 carburetor a shot. I got that carburetor off Amazon. I have the link for it down below, along with the parts if you decide to keep the Tecumseh carb. Well, for now, that's a wrap. If you found this video useful, entertaining, give it a like. It sure helps. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe. Hit that Joe Z button and be sure to share this video with someone else who might find it useful. Until next time, stay safe.